Thank you all for tuning in. The following is a presentation of Bald Spots Productions. Be sure to like, comment, and share. Subscribe, follow, whatever it is you've got to do to kick that algorithm into gear and help us reach more people. Yes, it is I, your humble host, Bill Hatch III, coming to you live from the palatial studios of Bald Spots Productions here in the beautiful city of Malden, Missouri. Joining me from more than acceptable safe social distances are my guests for today. And I forgot to ask you how to pronounce your last name. Schwartau?
Schwartau, exactly.
Schwartau. All right. Winn Schwartau. How are you doing, Winn?
Caffeine.
I completely understand. I am caffeinated for the day myself. Also, rejoining us for a comeback tour is Andy Charles. How you doing, Andy?
I'm great, Bill. Thanks for asking. Glad to be here.
Now, the first question I always ask my guests is, who are you reading right now?
Oh, who or what?
Who or what?
So can I show you this?
Sure. Welcoming.
Okay, it's becoming Flawsome.
Oh, Becoming Flawsome. Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, it's written by Christina Mandlakiani, co-founder of Mind Valley.
Okay. I've heard of Mind Valley. That's what's a key takeaway you've gotten so far?
Well, the key takeaway for me is how she is able to be very vulnerable and open up about some of the personal struggles that she's had in life and the lessons that she has learned, and now she's willing to share that publicly in this publication. It has a lot to do with accepting some of the things that we don't want other people to know about us. And she calls them flaws, but also to realize that those are some of the things that consistently help us to understand how human we are. They make us understand how human other people are and help us to come together and create a character and a mannerism that merely deals with the reality of what we feel on a daily basis. And there's nothing wrong with us, or there's nothing to be ashamed about. It's just a matter of being able to proper manage ourselves and show up how we can in our best possible form every single time.
Okay. It reminded me, one of my mentors used to call flaws and problems and all that stuff opportunities for improvement, and to look at it in a more positive light. That
if you don't screw up, you fail.
Yeah, that's true. Well, you're not learning anything if you haven't failed.
No, exactly. I see some of these applications that come in for people that want jobs and stuff, and their resumes say, "I've done all this great. I've done all this great. I've never failed at anything." Ooh. Well, what good are you to me then if you've never been through failure in order to know how to properly react to mission critical stuff, any part of your life? If you haven't been there, it's like driving. I really hate the way our system of driving is. You ought to be in a VR thing and crash and really be on highways for like 2 years before we let 16-year-olds out there know and experience and build that automatic response in. And failure creates that. That's great comments, Andy.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that.
What about you, Winn? What are you reading?
Oh, God, I read like 8 or 10 books at the same time.
Wow.
So pick one.
I'm reading, the last guy's name is Lazaroff, as I remember. And he's a sci-fi writer, and I read a fair amount of time travel stuff because I find it relaxing. And that's my kind of wind down. And this one is actually very, very linear, very easy. And it's about reality distortion. And this guy ends up in 17th century or 18th century Paris from today. And it's all about the realities and perceptions and trying to survive in that environment. And it's sort of like, if you maybe remember a long time, and I forget who wrote it, Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court was one of those things. Way
Samuel
back
Clemens.
When. Is that who wrote it?
Yeah, it's Mark Twain. It's a Mark Twain book.
And it's a retake on that, but
okay.
I enjoy them. And then I read a lot of nonfiction stuff just because I like geeking out.
Yeah, me too. Right now, I'm reading a lot of history stuff for class. I'm working on a Master's of Divinity in Marketplace Ministry, and they want us to take church history. So I get to read like six or seven books like this one in 8 weeks.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So it's not the most exciting stuff you can get into, but it is interesting if you're into the subject. But yeah, I've always wondered about time travel, because it's like there's all these things people don't seem to plan for when they're going for for time travel, like language. Like, if you go back in time 50 years, are you really going to understand English that the English they're speaking? And are they going to understand you?
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Yes. One of the great examples is Quebecois, the French in Canada. The French in Canada is spoken much closer to 18th century French than modern European French.
Okay.
Because there was a cultural schism 200 some years ago.
Right.
And the Quebecois style of French evolved. It did not evolve. It remained the same. But in Europe, because of all the cross-pollinations, the language evolved.
Interesting.
So, yeah, you can communicate. When I was a kid, my mother took me to Greece and says, go play with these children who don't speak English. We worked it out. You can work this stuff out. So the language, yes, language is really one of subtleties much more than trying survival mechanisms and communication.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, when I wanted to ask you about one of the things that Tanya put in the form that everybody fills out beforehand, that you testified before Congress, and what was that like? Because I can only watch like so much of those before I get bored out of my skull. What's it like to actually be there?
How I really felt and how my memory remembers it are probably two very different things. But my memory says I was not overwhelmed. It was just another give a talk. And it was more of a pain in the, can I say that word? Pain in the
sure.
I
don't censor anybody.
Because I had to prepare almost like an academic exercise. We need to know exactly what you're going to say.
Okay.
But other than that, the testimony was pretty straight ahead. That was easy. And I didn't, back in those days, we didn't have the politicization of what, I'm going to hammer on you. This was a genuine discussion about the ideas I had on information warfare, cyber war, and cyber terrorism.
Okay.
So the congressmen on the panel were actually quite interested and asked some good questions, and then they also exposed how little they know technically, and that's still true today. The biggest takeaway from it was one of the other folks and the interviews afterwards, where I got called a chicken little because of my discussion about the potential for cyber war and cyber terrorism and infrastructure protection.
And now it's a big deal. Wow. Yeah, not so much Chicken Little as somebody who could see that far into the future and see what was coming down the pipe. But so it's really changed. Yeah, so it's really changed the way that congressional hearings happen then, I guess.
I mean, there was no antipathy back in those days. I don't even remember, Republicans I don't remember. There was a guy from NIST that I knew. There were a couple other folks. Steve Walker, I knew him, and we were all talking tech, which is our comfort zone, and trying to get through to the congressman on the committee. How successful were we? I think we're still 30 years behind, 35 years behind where we should have been.
That's no good.
So none of it worked. And, geeks don't get to run the world.
No. Every now and again they get a few bucks, but but the intelligentsia does not run the world. That's for sure. The people who get elected know how to get elected, and that's about it.
Yeah.
So, Andy, how about you? What are you working on these days?
Well, personally, Bill, I'm just working on improving me personally, the individual. Self-mastery is something that I work at every single day. I would recall on the previous program, I spoke about doing that and growing at least 1% every day in life. The other thing I'm also working on, and I think this one is extremely important, is truly establishing the level of influence that I want to bring to the world in terms of that level of transformation that I can inspire people to accomplish. As a life and development coach, sometimes it can become challenging because I also need someone in my corner as a mentor, as a coach, to help me maintain that focus and to deal with some of the stuff that I am internally challenged with as well. So those are the two major things that I'm currently working on, and I think that I am making pretty good progress. And hopefully that progress is going to be seen in terms of the content that I put out there in the future and the relationships that I continue to build, develop, and grow with people who are particularly in need of the stuff that I'm blessed to do.
Great. That's wonderful. That 1% daily change is seems to be a big one these days. If we could get 1% better every day, then I actually worked out the math once because it's not 365%, because the next day it's 1% of 101%, and then the third day it's 1% of 102%. But I don't know. I get bored.
Yeah, but let me just say this, Bill. Look, here's the thing. At the end of the day, even if you did not achieve what you set out to accomplish, the fact that you actually made the application, you made the effort, you expanded time, resources, whether it was mental, emotional, physical, social, but you did something. And that's the whole idea, to do something more that you did not do yesterday, today, because the opportunity is always there for growth, for progress, for development. But you can't be too hard on yourself. It's the guy who's going to lose 300 pounds because of health reasons can't see 300 pounds.
Right.
He has to see incrementally the small amounts and do the little things that would eventually lead up to 300 pounds. 300 pounds should not even be in his immediate psyche or her psyche. Because if you think about it in terms of that large number, guess what's going to happen? Your mind is going to tell you, can't do that.
Yeah.
Can't expand that amount of energy, can't expand that amount of discipline. So at the end of the day, it's not about actually accomplishing, but it's about making that effort. Just making the time and being conscious of what you need to do just to get better. And with everybody, it's humanly possible. It all depends on how you approach it, with intentionality and a detailed commitment. What works for me may not work for Bill. What works for Bill may not work for Winn. But if we could share with each other and see where we can find some level of compatibility and even differences, then even within that is the learning process.
Absolutely. I'm reminded of the old saying, of the old question, how do you eat an elephant? and it's one bite at a
Yeah,
time.
there you go.
There you go. Don't worry about the next bite. Just worry about the one you're working on now.
Nope. Exactly. not practically, Win. Not practically.
My brain is like, that's writer's block. And when you have this wall and you can't get past it, and you got to just go, and then you waste 2 weeks of doing nothing. However, if you let the brain do some work and you say, go fix this problem, and let it do it in the background, I don't know whether it speeds things up, but sometimes that's the only way to kind of live with writer's block, is to hope that your brain is doing something of its own.
Yeah, get distracted and do something else. It's like when you can't sleep.
It's easy. Getting something productive. That's the big difference.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
I normally would take walks sometimes. If I'm working on a production, I'm working on a sermon, I'm working on a poem, whatever it is that requires literally skills for me to write something. And I reach a point where nothing comes, no inspiration, no ideas, nothing. I just can't continue. I leave it. I go take a walk. I look at nature, the birds, the flowers, the butterflies, and I just take my mind out of the environment of creativity and just look at the stuff in nature. Go to the park, watch the children play, go to a stream, see the waters flow. And guess what? Sometimes out of the unexpected, boom, a fresh perspective comes, new inspiration, and you start all over again. So it's a process.
Nature is your mantra.
There you go.
Yeah, I brew beer, so.
I read time travel, and then I absolutely love female detective mid-19th century Victorian England mysteries.
Wow.
Okay.
I know that sounds really bizarre.
It's a very specific niche.
Wow.
But it is. My wife and I really got, after COVID began, we started watching British mysteries because they're calm. Okay, 3 octogenarians died. We'll solve it, but let's stop by the pub before we do that. And you get an hour and a half show like that, and it's like very peaceful murders and I found that I really enjoy that era's kind of, we all have our quirks.
We do.
Yes.
We do.
Oh. So Win, are you writing now? You writing something?
Yes is the big answer, and the frustration. I finally crossed over or broke the dam on the writer's block 4 days ago, and it's a book called Meta War. And
okay,
if you go back to the stuff I did 35 years ago, InfoWar, Cyber War, and I was crazy and all that. Cool, no problem. There's a new kind of warfare, and I call it Meta War. And it's for ultimately the control or lack of control or individual control over one's identity and sense of beliefs and realities, and who's really in charge and how can it be manipulated. And it comes along with a fairly simple thesis, if you'll bear with me. It's called the Meta War thesis. And it's the art and science of creating immersive belief systems, whether it's for good or for bad. It doesn't matter what the intention is, but it works very simply. They say the metaverse. I don't. That brings up a Ready Player One, Neil Stephenson Snow Crash kind of or Matrix thing. And that's off in the future, and we have some cool tech, and I talk about all that. But the fundamental thesis is, what is the difference between going into the full-on metaverse and reading a book that absorbs you, watching a TV show that absorbs you and immerses you into it? So the thesis is pretty straight ahead. Everything is about storytelling. and it's fundamental to all human communications. And the goal is to create an immersive experience, whether it's Homer talking about Troy around a campfire in ancient Greece, creating an immersive experience that you can actually see and believe. And I do this with audiences live to get them to shut their eyes, and I take them somewhere. And all I need to do is have them become aware after 5 or 8 seconds that they were somewhere else. And that gets them thinking. And once I've got immersion going on, I have created reality distortion. I have changed your entire perception of reality for some period of time. And that allows me then to, and they use the word disinformation, misinformation a lot, and that's fundamentally, in my opinion, not the problem. It's too much information. As we have in the information age, I hate the term, but roughly since the mid-1950s, explosion of data and our sensory inputs. And the book goes through what happens to us physiologically and mentally with too much information, turning into why disinformation works. And once that happens, then you have manipulation. Once I have enough disinformation out there, and they have the math studies, they got the clinical studies of exactly how this works. I've got manipulation. I can manipulate you by using a reward system, whether it's an NFT in an 8-year-old girl's game playing Candy Crush or getting a like. That reward is all about digital opioids. And those digital opioids then create addiction to the narrative, regardless of what the narrative is, a good guy narrative, a bad guy narrative, a conspiracy narrative. And ultimately, it ends up with compliance and belief. And that is what we're facing right now with the concentration of immersive technologies that are going completely out of control and unrestrained, despite what Congress thinks they're doing, as they announced this morning on child safety. What they're doing is bullshit. It's not enough. It doesn't even approach the problem.
Wow.
So when I look at the meta-war thesis, it's really quite, it becomes an existential issue. Are we willing to give up our identity to coexist with technology?
Wow.
And that's what the book is about.
Okay. That's pretty deep. Yeah, a couple of weeks ago we had a conversation about narratives in race relations, and and the way we were talking about that I'm reminded by what you're saying, that that people create these narratives to say to guide people, I guess, if you want to put it in a nice way, force people, if you don't, into these belief systems and actions related to that. So it's just a technological component now of that same basic premise.
Yeah, when the baby comes out the chute, it doesn't know hate. It doesn't know prejudice. It has no opinions. They have to be taught.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And now we have technology doing that for us.
It's amplifying it. The amplification curve. And again, in the book, there's a lot of geeky stuff. And the reason I make it so geeky is I'm trying to get a group of different engineering disciplines, science disciplines, policymakers, educators, philosophers, to start talking about it as an interdisciplinarian human issue versus purely just a technical issue. But in order to make that argument, the goal is to say, the science is here. Here is the science. This is what we know now. We got to start dealing with this now, but not in our individual disciplinary stovepipes. We've got to look at this as a human pan-planet issue.
Interesting. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You were going to say something, Andy?
Yeah, I'm listening to Winn, and it's very instructive that he's speaking about a collective effort. But when I'm in the Caribbean, right, for example, and our diaspora is quite diverse in terms of culture, ethnicity, and all of that. But at the end of the day, the question is there one or two or maybe three things that we can have in common that if we come together and deal with the things that we are most challenged with in terms of how we build our civilization or continue to build our civilization, that we can all mutually benefit from in terms of that coming together. And if we can't, well, then let's seek to find a way, because we are supposed to be the head of all creation in terms of all the creatures that have been created. When you look at the jungle, sometimes you see animals living better than human beings, because obviously they seem to understand that there's a cycle or a circle of existence that takes place, where some may be in a place of superiority and some may be in a place of inferiority, but still all are acceptable at one point in time. However, when we look at the history of man, what we have come to realize, I certainly have realized it, that we tend to be a whole lot more self-destructive than the animals are. We create bombs that could wipe nations off the face of the earth. What is the reasoning behind that? If you think about it, another fellow human being who has the same rights as you have in terms of existing and being able to not advantage or take advantage of, but being able to have access to all the facilities that we are supposed to be able to have access to exist just as basic human beings. Some people think that they should be robbed of that for whatever reasons. Exploitation, cultural differences. We have people in certain areas of the world are thinking about ethnic cleansing. I mean, come on. We are so guilty of being self-destructive that at the end of the day, I sometimes wonder how some of us sleep at night. And I say us because it's a universal thing. It's not a North American thing, a European thing, African, down under. No, it's universal. At some point in time, every corner of the globe has to deal with it. So my main question is there one, two, or three things, Winn, Bill, that we could identify as human beings, despite what level or strata of society that we are in, that we could say, if we can come together to deal objectively with the challenges that exist, that affects each and every one of us at different levels, of course, what are those things that we can identify? How can we come together collectively and deal with them, thinking objectively? In the end, the result is that it would be better off for us to coexist and live, even with the upsurge of technology and AI and all the other things that comes with it. Can we do that? And if so, how? Because at the end of the day, if we can, my friends, the benefits are going to be huge and monumental. And then it will not just be somebody's name carved in the history of time, but it would be for the sake of creating a legacy for many of us and those who are coming after us to now enjoy.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can address a couple of those issues with fact and then a couple of them with opinion. Bottom line question that at the bottom of it all, Andy, is fear. When let's look at the human being as we are. We have been in this form roughly for 40,000 years. When we lived in the jungle or on the savannah, we had to survive. We had to hear a tiger, smell a lion, don't drink dirty water, things like that. We had to learn primal survival. And that primal survival mechanism is what is called in various neuroscientific circles System 1. Mm-hmm. That which we react to automatically. How much is 4 times 4, Andy?
12.
16.
Okay. 16. All right. And how much is 27 times 14?
Beats me.
Right. You knew, Bill, 4 times 4 is 16. It's ingrained in our System 1 through learning. System 1 is what our primal reactions and how we relate to the world, knee-jerk, gut reactions, those immediate things that happen much faster than our conscious thought. 98% of our brain goes into unconscious system 1 reactions to our environment and sensory inputs. What you want to do, and I absolutely spot on agree, those are all system 2. You used a great phrase. You said thinking objectively. Well, thinking is not part of system 1. Thinking is part of system 2.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying absolutely the right things. And I'm, again, not saying anybody's right or wrong because I'm exploring this and putting ideas out. What we need to do is when you are walking down a street in a big city and you hear a horn, what do? Your system 1 brain does an automatic evaluation as to how far away the sound is. If it is far away, your system 1 brain will say, don't worry. If it's really close, your system 1 brain says, danger, Will Robinson. And what do? You pause. You pause to think about the reaction. Where I am focusing this entire effort on meta-war, immersion, reality distortion, and perceptions of the world is we need to put a pause into our system 1 thinking and make that pause mechanism part of our primal responses. I'm in cybersecurity. I trust nothing. But that has become a primal piece of my life. And a lot of folks in our field, scientists, tend to be that way. Deep thinkers, people that are playing around, you got to think about it. Too much of humanity, because of needs just for survival, operate largely on system 1. How do we get that shift to occur? And that is what the end of the book is about, how to actually make that happen, looking at 10 different engineering disciplines and coming up with some crazy synthesis idea. But yeah, Andy, absolutely spot on. Once we can get people to think, that's number 1. Get them to think.
Yeah. But isn't there enough reason with regards to some level of motivation for people to question more? Hey, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Or is it just simply that primal instinct of this is about me, as long as I survive, that's it?
Survival, our entire biology and mental biology has one goal: survive.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
How we interpret that, our bodies are still primed from the jungle and the savannah.
Yeah, it is.
Only I use the year 1952 for various reasons, but information age, we did not have information overload. Yeah, you hear little bits and pieces historically about it, but that means they had 16 books in the library. Oh, that's too much. What we are dealing with today is called the attention economy. Everybody wants to grab your attention. We have a very limited amount and capacity of information that the body and the brain can absorb per second. We know the numbers exactly. We know where the processing occurs. And that information overload is what is really causing a huge amount of additional layers of fear, the unknown, and returning to a comfort zone. Back, our primal urges always say, get to safety, get to safety, get to safety. Mental safety means I'm not going to change my beliefs. That is your knee-jerk reaction. Yeah. Andy, I don't care what the hell you're saying. I know what I believe, and it really doesn't matter. I'm good. Thank you. It's a primal system 1 response. You got to get through that first.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
And as we can see, the those knee-jerk responses can be vastly different from person to person, depending on what on how you grew up, the information that you were fed when you were growing up. Mm-hmm. what was important to me wasn't important, or what was important to my parents wasn't necessarily, and the others who influenced me, teachers and whatnot, as I grew up, were not the same as, say, for my cousin who grew up around gangs and violence and parents who didn't really care as much. Well, a mother who didn't care as much as she should have, but and that would be different from Andy's or from yours, Winn. And so we have to. I think in some ways we have to figure out how to change the way that we're indoctrinated into the world, if you will, to get those knee-jerk reactions to change.
Yep. There's been a lot of work in that. I don't want to get too technical, but roughly in 1961, a guy, some scientist, I forget his name, recognized pieces of how the brain kind of has these two components. It got more formalized over the years. And then in 2017, a group of experimental psychologists out of Cambridge University came out with an experiment. How can we change people's belief systems in misinformation, disinformation? How can we get them to turn on that question that Andy's talking about? Well, why do people question more? Because they're not primed to. They're never taught. Too many people are just accept, because it's the mentally easy way. System 1 takes no energy. System 2 takes a whole boatload of actual energy in our body to do thinking. And that is not our comfort zone. Naturally, we have to work at it. And so when you look at these pathways to getting thinking going, there's lots of different mechanisms that can be used, and some of them are shock and awe. But that only creates the pause button. Make something really loud, I'm going to get your attention. But the pause button is only the first step of what needs to occur, because the pause does not teach System 1 why it did it. It didn't become an automatic reaction to question things, especially in an information-rich environment where too much information, TMI, and information overload is the norm. Yeah. We got to get away from that stuff. We got to start re-looking and examining how we are interacting with technology, objectively, thinking-wise, in order to apply this to what is known and being experimented with in experimental psychology to see how can we really help people turn on their thinking more often than not.
Yeah. It's unfortunate, Bill and Winn, that sometimes some of the greatest strategies that we experience helps us to find some of the answers that we seek in life. And I see that in the context of, there are times when we have wars and rumors of wars. We currently have wars happening right now. And just as we had came out of the pandemic COVID-19, there was this sense of realization that we are not all that. As a matter of fact, COVID-19, what it did actually was help level the playing field. What I mean by that is simply this. Whether you are a president, a prime minister, a megastar, a superstar in whatever arena or your place of genres, you could not escape COVID-19. And from that particular perspective, we found that the fear of contracting the disease made us do things that we would not have normally done. So what we learned is that primal response that we have been tooting around for however long comes in and kicks into place to help us survive, seemingly only when our backs are against the freaking wall.
However,
why? Yeah.
However, when you look at the numbers, you have a bell curve, a standard distribution curve.
Yeah.
And the math is well known, and it's called sigma 1, would be 68.1 or 68.2% of the population. The rest of them, and those folks said, yeah, we got to survive. We got to survive this. Then you have everybody else anti-vaxxing saying it's, whether it's conspiracy theory, fear, or whatever. Humanity's reaction to vaccination and COVID met a standard statistical deviation, and not everybody's playing the same game. You're talking about sigma 1 people.
Yeah.
You know, it's 68% of us. Spot on. But there was a lot. I spent a lot of time in Paris during COVID, and the sheer number of, we'll say, demonstrations that went on was incredible.
Right.
The police over there and the government allowed them to demonstrate to get their frustrations out. But it's not universal.
Yeah.
We really need to apply more science to this and look at, if 68%, where's the herd immunity mentally? Do we have a herd mental immunity? We don't know that yet.
We don't know. Yeah. Yeah. But you know what? It all boils down to what you were saying before. When this thing hit and we started to deal with it from different levels, because there was so much information coming from so many different quarters, and suddenly we had so many experts. It was as if, okay, fine, I'm going to understand it from this perspective, and then boom, WHO came and said X. Okay, we're going to understand it from this perspective. And then some scientists in some lab in France came and you had people going back and forth. Here's the thing. What should we believe? What is truth? What is fact? And if we can't make head or tail of it, obviously, we're going to just push it away and let it back off. Why? Because we are still thinking, if I can clarify what the information is, then I can decipher whether this is in my best interest or not. So it boils back to the original point that you were making. Too much information. Way too much. About one thing from so many different quarters, and everybody wants to be right.
And you have your knee-jerk reactions because that is what triggered, it triggers your belief system in system 1. It's like, what do you believe? Do you believe Fauci, or do you believe he who shall not be named? Which way do you go? And that gets back to a primal system 1 belief system. If you already believe in science, you're going to go with Fauci. If you tend to believe crazy government stuff and all that, you're going to go the other way. Yeah. Or however many different gradations there were in the middle.
Yeah.
But it's still about fear and comfort zone and belief systems.
Wow. Confirmation bias.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Because it's easier. Confirmation bias takes no mental energy.
Right.
Thinking about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Makes your brain ache sometimes.
Indeed.
Yeah.
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 So, Bill.
So what?
Yeah. So what?
So what?
So, Bill, I'm curious. I'm really curious.
Mm-hmm.
I sat on my couch Sunday gone, looking at the telly, the number one spectacle in the planet. And yeah, when I know. And I'm thinking to myself, it looks like the 49ers are going to pull it off. And then in the fourth quarter, something seemed to kick the butts of Mahomes and all the other guys, and especially Andy Reid. The whole dynamic of the game changed because it seemed as though their entire psyche of how they should approach the game changed. And it tells me something about a championship mentality. The championship mentality does not accept the conditions or the situations that are presented to it, but rather uses those conditions, whether they are for or against the champion, as a catalyst to bring out within them what they already have before the conditions arise. That's the lesson that I learned from that particular episode of watching that game. What are your thoughts?
That is the hacker mentality. The computer hacker mentality has been that for absolutely forever. Good engineers. All right, good. The greatest hack in history. Okay. I'm not going to get geeky on you. Don't worry. The greatest hack in history, Apollo 13. Everything went to shit up there.
Yeah.
And the scene down in NASA was a guy, Ed Harris, bringing out the box, and he dumps everything on the table and says, "This is all they have. Save them."
Right.
And he redefined reality for the guys on Earth.
Yeah.
Here are the tools available. We don't care how you do it.
Yeah.
And as you said, your term, think like a champion. And his term was failure is not an option.
Right. Wow. Interesting.
Yeah. No, the champion, the true champion thinks differently and is more in the thinking mode. They're not just taking knee-jerk reactions and reacting to what's going on. They're able to get above their instincts. I mean, their instincts are going to be good too, but they get above their instincts so they can analyze. I mean, Mahomes wasn't just dodging and reacting. He was thinking, and like you said, in that system too, and realizing what San Francisco was doing and taking advantage of that. And of course, San Francisco. I can't remember their quarterback's name, but they just weren't.
Purdy. Yeah.
And they just weren't. He just wasn't thinking that way. Yeah, Purdy just wasn't thinking that way, and at least not fast enough. At that level, it becomes about your ability to speed to the solution, as opposed to But then again, they've got these things ingrained in them. They've got plays and how to react to obstacles and how to get that ball into the end zone.
It's riding a bicycle.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. These guys live, eat, breathe, whatever else you want to describe. The very thing that helps them survive. That's how they make their living anyways. So it's extremely important.
Mm-hmm.
But I love that Purdy got the experience. I think if he has to take away anything from that, is to understand what it is to be on that stage at that level and to perform because of certain levels of expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And having made it to the Super Bowl in itself was an achievement. They probably didn't even expect to reach that far. So then now that we are here, what do we do? And man, did he start off well. But like I said before, when it really mattered the most, when push came to shove and the crunch time came, that championship mentality had to kick in. Mm-hmm. And it kicked in at the right time. And that is what makes the difference. And I guess at some point in time in the future, if Brock is thinking the way he should be thinking, which is progressive, he will realize that one of his greatest lessons was just being there and seeing how it is done, so that if he gets the opportunity again, he himself can make that mental shift that is necessary and just go to another gear because you have to.
Well,
it comes nothing to be ashamed of.
No,
nothing,
he doesn't.
Absolutely nothing.
Well, it comes back around to where we started. He had won too much.
Exactly.
San Francisco won too much to win the Super Bowl. They hadn't learned enough of those lessons from failure.
There
we go. And so he failed at the Super Bowl, and will be better for it, hopefully.
Hopefully.
And for his sake, not for mine. I'm a Packers fan, so so none of this mattered to me at all.
I had no dog in the fight at all, other than Taylor Swift. 53 seconds of Taylor Swift, right?
Oh, okay.
And everybody's going nuts over it.
Okay. Hey, publicity and marketing is a heck of a thing, bro. It's a heck of a thing.
It is.
Attention economy.
There you go. There you go.
Yep. Yeah, and the marketers are the ones who win. The successful marketers. You know, it's all about marketing in the end. You know, how do you get people to watch your podcast, and how to get inside your head, how to get that system one to change, and so that you become the knee-jerk reaction. Yeah.
Oreos, first thing. Mm-hmm. What kind of milk? What kind of? What's the first thing you think of? Of anything. What's the first thing you think of? Doesn't matter what the question is.
Yeah.
And you're going to go with that comfort zone. Most people are going to go with that immediate comfort zone, unless they have built that pause button into almost everything.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah, it's it's how we exercise. Those questions are how we exercise our brains. Like you said, it's system one is easy, it's comfortable, and it doesn't require any work. But if we don't ask the questions, then we just get weaker.
Well, here's what's also interesting: when you ask somebody a question, that automatically triggers a pause, because what happens is there's a release of serotonin that calms the brain, that says, let me think about this for a second. When you begin answering the question, you get a digital opioid dopamine fix. How can that all be optimized into reinforcing system one stuff? We don't know that answer yet, but it's one of the ones I'm posing to that portion of the scientific community, is that if all of this is happening, let's go look at this path.
Yeah.
So it would potentially, using MetaWar technologies and techniques that I go through, using them instead of for control and power and money and influence and all of that, use it to help adapt the human mind to coexist with that which we have created.
Yeah.
We created AI in our own image.
Yeah.
We don't like what we see.
Yeah, but it's like looking at the man in the mirror.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here's the next thing. I just think that we sometimes miss the opportunity to go to better levels. Because when, for example, you spoke about the serotonin and you spoke about the dopamine, what about if we could extend it to where we can get the oxytocin? And then we build something that is symbiotically resonating between each other.
Well, then release some ayahuasca and some DMT out of the pineal gland. See what happens.
Exactly. Exactly.
All of this is addressed because of sensory environments and how to manipulate all of our senses into new realities and belief systems and internal unconscious system one physiological reactions. A lot of it is known, a lot of it is coming about with new tech, but the foundation of it is all very, very real.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. It's amazing stuff. Well, I think we should leave them wanting more. And so this seems like a pretty good place to stop. I want to thank you both for. It was.
Andy, where are you in the Caribbean?
I'm in the Caribbean. I'm in the Twin Island Republic of Trinidad and Tobago.
I love Trinidad.
There you go.
I haven't been there in a long time, but boy, the size of that spider that came in our hotel room.
Tropical forest contingencies.
No, our hotel, it was great. It was right in the, they wanted to put us up into a fancy something, Marriott or whatever. And I said, no, I want something a little more indigenous. Well, I didn't know how indigenous it was going to get.
I
loved it. My wife is a little squirmy around these things. And, the window in the bathroom, there is no window. It's a hole in the brick. And then just creepy crawlies. But what was great is they built the hotel facility. It looks like peace and added on through the jungle and over the creek, and then the trees hanging in, and we're having dinner and the monkeys are coming down. I loved it.
Okay.
And the best shark steak sandwich I ever had in my life.
Yeah, there you go.
That's on North Beach, if I remember correctly.
Oh, Maracas.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's one of the tourist hubs, tourist destinations that we have on the island. It's a fantastic place.
Yeah, we hired a driver for the day. We said, just show us everything, and do the tourist thing.
Yeah.
And the shack with the shark sandwich was just. Yeah. I went back for 2 more.
Yeah, we have famous bacon shacks down there. So yeah, I'm glad that you enjoyed that.
I loved it.
Sounds good.
Sounds like I'll have to get down there.
Oh yeah.
Let me know, Bill. Where are you located?
I live in Nashville and on airplanes.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I used to live in Clarksville.
Oh, okay. So were you an Army brat or in the military?
Army brat. I was a brat.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I'm in Missouri now though, so not too far.
I'm giving a talk at a conference in Missouri in May, if you care.
Oh yeah.
It's called Show Me Con.
Show Me Con.
Show Me Con. It says here May 10th. I'm coming in from California. And going to be talking about cognitive defense and for enterprise, for organizations.
Okay.
Well, how far are you from St. Louis?
About 3 hours.
Yeah, it's another little town. It's right on the river, and I forget the name of it. Somethingville. Well, but it's got a casino and all things.
There you go. Sounds like fun.
Tanya knows my schedule.
Tanya knows the schedule. Okay. Well, I'll have to ask her. Okay. Well, yeah, I will, because I can put that in the description so people can know where to find you. But
well, you could also do a show from down there.
Do what?
You could also do a show from down there.
There you go.
Hey.
Can do it anywhere I want.
Ideas.
There you go.
So, well, I want to thank you
again, Andy. Good to meet you.
Thank you both. Before we go, do you have final words for the nice people?
Be excellent to one another.
There you go. My final word would be people just take time to think. Just 1 second. Just take time to think before you act or react. Consider your options. And then what you would like to happen to others, ensure that it happens to you. Stop
All right,
there.
Now you got to start making stickers. I pause before I think.
There you go.
There we go.
There you go.
Well, thank you again, gentlemen, for being on the show. Thank you all for watching and listening. And be safe out there. Wash your hands and stay tuned for the ending credits. Thank you all for tuning in. This has been a presentation of Bald Spots Productions. I'd like to thank our producer, my beloved mother, Eileen Hatch. I, of course, am your humble host. I'd also like to thank my special guests, Winn Schwartau and Andy Charles. Support the show if you feel so led over on patreon.com. We're known as Bald Spots Pro. Don't you dare miss YWL Online. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, and wherever fine podcasts are offered. Be sure to tune in next time when my special guest will be Mitch Creighton, who will regale us with tales of foreign travel. Be sure to like, comment, and share. Subscribe, follow, whatever it is you've got to do to kick that algorithm into gear and help us reach more people.
If you or someone you know needs support now, call or text 988 or chat 988lifeline.org. That is the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline here in the United States.